Am I the asshole for making my wife choose between me and her best friend? I am 36 and preparing for my upcoming surgery at the end of May. I have respiratory condition that I have been suffering from, and my wife has been very supportive and accommodating of all my needs. She has endured so much by shouldering this burden with me, and I can never describe how much supportive she's been with everything that has been going on with me. The problem is that her best friend's wedding is at the end of May, specifically on the 27th, and my surgery takes place the exact same date. Now 27th was not the original date of her friend's wedding, it was supposed to be on May 18th but got changed. Her friend informed us about it on short notice. And my wife wanted to go, but it's a 8-hour trip since the wedding will be held in the groom's hometown. My wife and I discussed this, and I bluntly told her I needed her there for my surgery. She told me that that's her best friend and this will hopefully be her only wedding, and she wanted to attend. She asked if I could get a friend as my support, but I just didn't think this was right. I was even puzzled that she asked me to get a substitute while she goes to her friend's wedding. I asked if her friend's wedding was more important than my health. She argued that there was nothing wrong with it and I won't need her since the medical team will take care of me. Then she said that by refusing I was making her choose between me and her best friend. We went back and forth on this argument and she insisted she wants to attend her friend's wedding. I told her she was being unreasonable and I never expected her to prioritize a wedding over my health. She loudly yelled, "What do you want me to do? I might lose my friend over this," then stopped talking to me. I think I handled this badly and acted in ungrateful manner, but I think she's the one who doesn't understand the difference since my surgery is an emergency, and if her best friend is a good friend then she'd understand, right? So am I wrong for what I said? Not the asshole in sickness and in health does not have a temporary suspension due to BFF's wedding clause. I'm going to say no assholes here because you're totally reasonable for wanting her there, and she's also reasonable for not wanting to miss a once-in-a-lifetime event for her best friend. It also sounds like she's experiencing some caregiver fatigue. Has she had to give up other things to care for you? Spending time with friends, going on trips, etc.? If so, she might be feeling a little burnt out and like she really needs to do something for herself. And if that's so, I think if you at least try to arrange to have someone else to support you for your surgery, that will go a long way. For a lot of caregivers, the constant stress of having to put their own needs second can be really draining. Info. Have you considered couples counseling? It sounds like your wife might be suffering from caregiver burnout and harboring some resentment. No assholes here. Of course you want your wife there, that's understandable. But I'm the primary caregiver for my medically complex child, so I'm very familiar with caregiver burnout. And you really need to try to see her side of this, especially given the fact she has been a devoted caregiver up to this point. I'm going to bet that between COVID and your lung condition, she hasn't been able to go out and do much of anything for respite, and she is now vaccinated and was really looking forward to this wedding. I can't say what the solution is. But I don't think she's a horrible person for wanting to go. It's not an indication of her love for you. She just needs a break. Wow, people are actually believing Op is an asshole for wanting his wife to support him when he's having surgery. Op, you are not the asshole if your wife believes because she's not performing the surgery she doesn't need to be there for emotional support. You should really inform her you don't agree with this decision. Because she is obviously choosing her friend over you. Info. Is the surgery an emergency or an elective surgery that wouldn't impact your health if it was rescheduled by a week? I've had 9 surgeries over the last year and I tell my husband not to sit at the hospital waiting for me to go through pre-op. Then in one case 11 hours of surgery, then post-op recovery. It's not like I'll be aware he's even there. Let him arrive after I'm in my room and awake. What do you want me to do? I might lose my spouse over this. Why does her friend have more importance in her life than her spouse? Not the asshole. So I am one that has been a caretaker to a person that stays at the hospital more often than the average person. It sucks being in the hospital, it really does. There is no way around that. But it sounds like from the post this is another routine surgery and one that she feels comfortable and confident enough that a friend could take her place. Sounds like she is super supportive, and in a relationship support goes both ways. So are you going to support her friendship? It doesn't feel like we have all the info. But from what I've read, and my own experience, you're the asshole. I guess because I come from a medical family and had some pretty significant surgeries. As long as someone is around to pick me up, it doesn't matter to me anymore. Making a loved one sit for hours in the waiting room, unless it's emergency surgery and there are decisions to be made, I think it's selfish and doesn't help anyone. I have a healthcare proxy and a living will on file, and as long as the contact has their phone available, it doesn't matter if they sit in the waiting room waiting, being exposed to all the crap floating around the hospital. I'm going to lean towards you are the asshole only because I don't believe OP is giving the full story. They have not responded to any of the multiple comments asking for more info about the type of procedure. It could be a simple biopsy, or a thoracentesis, procedure done frequently with some chronic lung diseases. I think OP is intentionally withholding relevant info. Not the asshole. Your wife is trying to support her friend's marriage by sacrificing her own. If her friendship is so fragile that she would lose a friend because she chose to support her husband in surgery, that doesn't seem like a friendship worth keeping. She can support her friend by giving her a nice gift off the registry. Info. When you say, "My wife has been very supportive and accommodating of all my needs. She has endured so much by shouldering this burden with me," what specifically does she do? Also, is this a condition you have had all your life? Not the asshole. I've had 2 major surgeries in the time I've known my husband, and he's been by side for each one. The support of a spouse with your sick is immeasurable. A friend's wedding is lower in priority. Sorry you're going through this, OP. Good luck on your surgery. Info. Does your hospital allow people to be in with patients currently? When a family member of mine went in last month, they still wouldn't let anyone accompany him because of the horrid virus. With what's given, I'd have to say not the asshole, but I imagine there is more to this story because it sounds ridiculous that your wife cares so much for a wedding. If you have had medical problems for a long time and she has supported you through everything, maybe she is burned out and needed a break. She had been looking forward to this wedding and a chance to be normal again, and now it's all screwed up and she once again has to give up everything for you. If this is the case, you need to be careful. If this isn't the case, and it hasn't been long, then wow, she's an asshole and I'd be rethinking my marriage. Let her have her friend. Not the asshole. If she might lose a friend over not going to a wedding when her husband has an emergency surgery, that's not a good friend. And she's not a good person either. Not the asshole for wanting her by your side. But I think compromising on this one might be important. She sounds like a really supportive person and she might need to have this one. For her mental well-being. It's a hard one. Good luck with your surgery. Do you have a friend who could be there on the actual day of your surgery? Info. What kind of surgery? Is it something simple like wisdom teeth removal, or are you talking open heart surgery? Getting an ingrown toenail removed or brain surgery? There's a big difference here. Regardless, I would say soft not the asshole because it seems like this would be a serious surgery, since it's an emergency. I would choose my husband over my best friend, because my husband is my best friend. I had to forego a best friend's wedding once because I had already booked a trip to Maui. I made sure to send a really expensive gift and that was that. Info. When you say your surgery is an emergency, do you mean it's been scheduled suddenly because of a change in your condition? Or is it an emergency in the sense that it's a serious medical event? Not the asshole. It's an 8-hour trip away and the date change was last minute. You're having surgery and need support and care, which should be her priority. If your wife's best friend can't understand that, then there's a massive lack of compassion and empathy. I understand your wife being conflicted and wanting to attend, but I think she's got her priorities wrong. No assholes here. I have respiratory disease. It affects my life every minute of every day and has changed what I can and can't do significantly. I didn't grow up with this condition. I miss out on a lot of stuff now and my husband is often right there with me. I wonder how much of life your wife has not gotten to participate in fully while being supportive and staying by your side. I have FOMO and regrets every single day, but I couldn't do certain things if I tried. My husband could participate but chooses to sit out of things when I'm there and I make it a point to encourage him to do those things without me. You need your wife's support, but who is supporting your wife? If it's this friend, you need to consider what driving them apart will do to your marriage. Nah. Some folks have been talking about caregiver fatigue. That is a real thing. I think you should tell your wife to go to her friend's wedding. It might be the thing she needs to recharge herself. I think if you continue demanding that she prioritize you above everyone else, eventually she will decide not to. And what if something happens during the surgery and they need to get permission to do a procedure and she's not there to give consent? Not sure a friend would have that permission. It's why my stepfather wasn't allowed to leave the hospital while my mom was in a 6-hour spinal surgery. It's why I wasn't allowed to leave the surgical clinic, and ended up taking an online final exam in the waiting room, while my mom had a thumb replacement. Because there needs to be a family member there to make decisions when you cannot. Not the asshole. No assholes here, however I side more with your wife. 1. You will be under, so what emotional support will she really be providing the day of? 2. If medical decisions need to be made, you can talk with your doctor in advance or assign a family member to make them for you during our surgery. 3. She has been supportive of you in the past and could probably use a break. 4. She feels strongly about going to this wedding. 5. The real support you'll need from her comes after the surgery is done, so it would be good to let her have a break before the difficult part for her begins. So long as the wedding isn't a multi-day commitment, I think you should give her some slack. Not the asshole. You never know what will happen during surgery. Her being 8 hours away if something goes sideways could mean decisions being made for you by strangers instead of your loved ones. My uncle went in for routine surgery. He ended up being in a coma in the ICU for over a month and he's never been able to speak since. Because my aunt was there, she was able to advocate for him and make decisions on his behalf because she knew what he would want. If her friend is willing to dump your wife because she's by your side during surgery versus at the wedding whose date got changed with little notice, then she's a shitty friend. Not the asshole. One's spouse should always take priority. Not the asshole. Aren't you supposed to put your spouse first? NTA. She's got her priorities messed up. Not the asshole. She loudly yelled, "What do you want me to do? I might lose my friend over this, then stop talking to me." Odd that she seems to be okay with potentially losing her husband over this. Your wife's behavior is appalling. You have a surgery coming up and she's more concerned about a wedding? You deserve better. Not the asshole. So much for in sickness and in health. Look at the bright side, she might miss her BFF's wedding, but her BFF can go to her next wedding after you divorce her. All I have to say is if this was a woman speaking about how her husband chose not to be there for a surgery, the husband would be getting flayed. The wife is an asshole. No ifs, ands or buts about it. The surgery was planned. The wedding was moved. Your spouse surgery trumps a wedding. If something goes wrong, she can't get that back. He needs to be supported. This sub is highly sexist, favoring the women. Men deserve to be comforted too. They deserve the person who they married and spoke vows to put needs over wants. She wants to go. It's not a need. The wife sucks. My wife has been very supportive and accommodating of all my needs. She has endured so much by shouldering this burden with me, and I can never describe how much supportive she's been with everything that has been going on with me. You are the asshole. You've already taken so much and now you just want to take more? When is it your turn to support her? Nah. So we are skipping over the, and my wife has been very supportive and accommodating of all my needs. She has endured so much by shouldering this burden with me, and I can never describe how much supportive she's been with everything that has been going on with me. Less than. She sounds burnt out and in need of fun and a break, however it's not unreasonable for you to want her there. Is she consistent with canceling on people to shouldering this burden with you? Is she not able to do anything by herself? She didn't just wake up and choose frustrated and upset. Your wife has been waiting on you and you make her choose? I think you are the asshole. I understand that you want her there, but she might need a break. It is exhausting caring for ill people. By making her choose, you are making sure she will resent taking care of you when you really need it. You can tell her all the reasons you want her there, but you need to make it be her choice. I'm going to be downvoted for this, but oh well. I've dealt with multiple family members who've dealt with severe chronic illnesses, and I understand the toll it can take on you. However, I also know the risks that come with surgery, and I don't believe a loving spouse could truly enjoy a celebration, like a wedding, while your life is at such a high risk. My family lost 2 family members in a similar situation, one 2 weeks after the surgery. The other family member a week and a half later. NTA, your health and life matter more than a suddenly, and suspiciously, changed last-minute wedding. As someone who just had surgery for my heart, I'm gonna go with a soft you are the asshole. The hospitals aren't even allowing people to come in and see us before, after the surgery. You will go in, go under, wake up groggy and in pain and be attended to by nurses, and by the time you're released, your wife, who sounds incredibly dedicated to you, will be back. She can pause her night to FaceTime you, as a way to do both. But to ask her to give this up when there's nothing she can really do the day of your surgery is how you create caretaker burden and contempt in a relationship. Wishing you luck in your surgery and hope it brings you relief. I speak as a caregiver. You are a bit of an ass. Your wife has no control over the date. You couldn't just give her one day. And of course she won't tell you about caregiver burnout. We don't do that. We suffer in silence because you come first. And with COVID restrictions, how much can she be with you? You are going to be so doped up after surgery, would you really know she is there? Please, as a caregiver, give her this one day. Don't guilt her over it. Give her one day. Lose her friend? That's not much of a friend then. Would she rather lose her husband? She seems willing to risk it. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Obviously your wife should chose to be with you during a difficult surgery, but she also should be able to go to the wedding of her best friend. Personally, my husband always comes first, but she is allowed to want to go, especially if she's been stressed out by your illness. However, if anything, I think the best friend is a bit of an asshole here for not even consulting your wife and her best friend, who has a sick husband, on if the date worked for you guys if your wife's attendance was so important. Your wife seems to have picked her over you, and that's not a good sign. If she loses a friend over this, they're not a very good friend. Weddings aren't usually hosted on Tuesdays, the 18th, or Thursdays, the 27th. Also, people don't usually just change their wedding date on a dime like this, and if they did, they would be more than understanding that a person wouldn't be able to attend on a weekday, 0.8 hours away, after changing their wedding date at the last minute. And actually, surgeries can often be rescheduled too. I am in charge of appointment-related stuff for my mother-in-law and have rescheduled surgeries for her without a problem. And also, the wife who has been so supportive through all of this yelled at you and stopped talking to you during this conversation. But y'all are in your 30s? Sounds like a bunch of bullshit to me. Wow. Seriously? I thought it was, in sickness and in health, not, in sickness, but only when it's not an inconvenience, and in health, but only when it works in my favor. Not the asshole. I'm going to say you are the asshole, and I know this might seem controversial, but from OP's comments it's clear he doesn't care about his wife's needs. Of course, being ill is a valid excuse to get more care, but that doesn't mean your wife doesn't deserve care as well. OP mentioned in a comment that his wife has lost a family member and her mum had moved away. All that plus her husband is dying, and instead of being able to enjoy herself at a wedding, she's going to have to sit in a depressing hospital hoping her husband doesn't die? Bad situation entirely, but you both need therapy to be able to make any more decisions together. Not the asshole partner should always be number one. Especially to the point that you're even asking her to be there with you. It's a no-brainer. You shouldn't have even needed to ask. This is showing your importance to her priorities. Edit. And further to that, if her friend was a decent friend, they'd also tell your partner to be with you as well. Nah. She probably has caretaker's fatigue and knows she'd be missing the wedding to sit in a waiting room. You want emotional support. Not the asshole. You should be more important than a wedding, and if her friend would ruin a friendship over her being with you on such an important day, then she's not a good friend to begin with. I know my best friend would never make me choose between attending an event and being there for my husband if he's going into surgery. Not the asshole. Her spouse should come first, and she should be there to support you, and especially in case something happens and she needs to make a medical decision on your behalf. She can't really do that if she's 8 hours away. Surely her best friend should be understanding, and if she loses her over something like this, then they're not a very good best friend. I'm probably going to be in the minority, but you are the asshole. If you're really getting major surgery that day, you're largely going to be pretty out of it. Your wife won't be able to do much more than sit in the hospital room and watch you rest. You don't need her for that, especially at the cost of something really important to her. You say that you are in ill health and that she's generally supportive of your needs and caretaking. That's a lot to carry. So if she needs this, I think you're well advised to let her have it, or else you risk bringing resentment into your marriage. That can be a dangerous thing, and whatever value you get out of her watching you rest while zonked out isn't worth it. You are the asshole. It sounds like she has been devoting her life to your illness and she needs a day for herself. If you can't do it without her, reschedule your surgery. You are the asshole. I've had over half a dozen surgeries in the last 2 years, and honestly the first couple of days you're going to be groggy and sleeping anyway. Are you really going to begrudge your wife the opportunity to go to her best friend's wedding to watch you sleep? Also, if it was an emergency, this would be a non-issue as you'd already be on an operating table. Urgent and emergent are different. Info. Is this an inpatient or outpatient procedure? Basically, how long do you stay in the hospital after?